My name is Clara Bennett, and I was 33 years old the winter I learned that an old recipe box could stop a house from being sold. My grandmother turned 81 on the first Sunday in December. She baked 2 pies that morning because she had forgotten which one my father liked best. Apple with lattice crust, sweet potato with whipped cream. She set the dining room table for 10. The good plates, the silver that had to be polished with a cloth from a drawer nobody else knew how to open. Folded napkins shaped like fans because she still remembered how to make things beautiful, even when she sometimes forgot what day it was. Nobody came. My parents were at a resort in Vermont with my older brother and his wife. My mother posted a picture in a fur-trimmed coat beside a fireplace and wrote, "Family time is the greatest blessing." My brother Tyler texted Grandma at 5:08 p.m. "Happy birthday, Nana. Crazy weekend. Rain check." My father did not text at all. I drove 2 hours from Providence after my shift at the probate court, still wearing my navy work flats, with a grocery store bouquet sliding around on the passenger seat. When I got to Nana's house, the porch light was on. Every window was dark except the dining room. I found her sitting at the head of the table in a pale blue sweater, hands folded beside 2 untouched pies and 10 empty plates. She looked up when I came in. Her eyes sharpened for 1 second. "Clara," she said, "did I put the turkey in?" "There's no turkey, Nana." "Oh." She looked at the table, then at the pies. "Then why did I set all this?" I sat down beside her. "Because you love people who forgot how to deserve it." She blinked at me. Then she smiled in that soft, confused way that used to break my heart and now made me want to break doors. I lit 1 candle. I sang Happy Birthday. She cried halfway through the song because she remembered enough to know she had been waiting. The next morning, while I was washing 10 clean plates that had never touched food, a woman in a gray coat knocked on the back door. She introduced herself as Helen Morrow, an elder law attorney from Newport. The man beside her was a notary. Helen handed me a sealed envelope and a rusted green recipe box tied shut with twine. "Your grandmother asked us to bring these to you," she said, "when the family started discussing a transition." I looked down at Nana's handwriting across the envelope. "For Clara, when they say I need to leave my house." Helen said one more thing before she stepped off the porch. "Do not call your parents before you read everything." That was the first good legal advice anyone in my family had ever given me. The Bennett house sits on Mariners Road in Bristol, Rhode Island, 3 blocks from the bay. Gray shingles, white trim, hydrangeas along the fence, a porch swing that groans even when no one is sitting on it. My grandfather built the back steps in 1978, badly, and refused to let anyone replace them because he said uneven steps built character. He died when I was 11. After that, the house became my grandmother's body. The kitchen was her heart. The dining room was her memory. The pantry was her stubbornness. The porch was her prayer. My grandmother, Rose Bennett, was the kind of woman who fed people before asking whether they were hungry. She had run a tiny bakery out of that kitchen for almost 30 years, mostly wedding cakes, birthday pies, and church fundraiser cookies packed in wax paper and tied with string. She never had a storefront. She had a reputation. In Bristol, that used to be enough. She kept her recipes in a green metal box on the second pantry shelf. Not organized. Never alphabetical. Recipe cards, grocery receipts, clipped newspaper columns, notes from brides, scraps of paper with oven temperatures and warnings like, "Do not trust Denise with the meringue." Denise was my mother. Nana did not trust her with meringue or much else. I grew up in that kitchen. My parents' house was 15 minutes away, but emotionally it was much farther. My father, Paul Bennett, was Nana's only child and the kind of man who confused avoiding conflict with being kind. My mother, Denise, managed the family the way some people manage rental properties, by extracting value and calling it responsibility. My older brother, Tyler, was the investment child. Hockey camps, private tutoring, a semester in London, a failed real estate license exam retaken 3 times with everyone clapping after the 4th. When Tyler lost money, my parents called it a learning curve. When I needed help with college textbooks, they called it a budgeting issue. I became the practical daughter, the reliable one, the one who drove Nana to appointments, filled her pill organizer, read insurance forms, called the oil company, fixed the Wi-Fi, and remembered that she hated lilies because they smelled like funerals. My family called me the clerk because I worked at the probate court. Technically, I was a deputy clerk in the guardianship division. It was not glamorous. I stamped filings, processed petitions, scheduled hearings, answered questions from people who were scared, grieving, angry, confused, or all 4 at once. I knew what a durable power of attorney looked like. I knew what incapacity meant when written in a physician's letter instead of whispered at a dinner table. I knew how quickly families started speaking about an older person in the past tense while that person was still sitting in the room. My mother said I pushed paper for judges. My brother said I was court adjacent. My father said at least it had benefits. Nana said, "You are the one who knows where the doors are." I did not understand how literal that would become. The forgetting started small. Nana put salt in her coffee. She called me by my mother's name and then laughed too hard when I corrected her. She bought 4 jars of cinnamon in 1 week because she kept forgetting she had bought the last one. At first, everyone pretended it was cute. Then she left the back burner on under an empty pot. Then she walked to the church rummage sale and could not remember how to get home. A neighbor found her sitting on the curb holding a bag of donated scarves, polite as a guest at someone else's confusion. After that, the family meetings began. Except they were never family meetings. They were Denise calling my father, Tyler joining by speakerphone, and me finding out later that a decision had already been discussed. "She cannot manage the house," Mom said. "She needs more support," Dad said. "The property market is hot," Tyler said. There it was. The house was valued around $900,000 now because Bristol had become the kind of town where people from Boston bought old houses and called peeling paint charming. Tyler's company, Bennett Harbor Development, was in trouble. He had purchased 2 small lots near Warren with borrowed money and a plan to build luxury duplexes. Permits stalled. Interest climbed. A private lender wanted repayment by January. The number changed depending on who said it. 600,000. 700. Enough that my brother had started wearing humility like an expensive jacket that did not fit. My mother began saying things like, "Rose would want to help Tyler. He's her grandson." She said it in front of Nana once. Nana had looked up from her crossword and said, "I already helped Tyler. I fed him until he was 18. My mother pretended not to hear. A month before Nana's birthday, I found a memory care brochure tucked under the bread box. Harbor Glen Residence. Private rooms. Secure garden. Activities. Monthly cost written in my mother's handwriting. Then a line beneath it. House sale covers 5 years plus Tyler bridge loan. I stared at that phrase for a long time. Tyler bridge loan. My grandmother's home reduced to a financial crossing for my brother's bad decisions. I put the brochure back. I wish I had taken it then. But at that point, I still believed my family had a bottom. I was wrong. The morning after Nana's birthday, the house smelled like dish soap, old butter, and disappointment. Nana slept in her recliner with one hand resting on the green recipe box Helen Morrow had delivered, as if even in sleep she knew it mattered. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the envelope first. Inside was a letter on cream stationery. Nana's handwriting filled the page in blue ink, more careful than usual, but firm. Clara, if you are reading this, then they have started saying I need to leave my house. Maybe they are right that I need help. I am not too proud to admit that, but needing help is not the same as surrendering everything. I know your mother has looked at this house like a number for years. I know your father will do whatever keeps peace at the wrong table. I know Tyler needs money more often than he needs shame. I also know you will read the papers before you react. That is why I chose you. Open the green box. The key is in the flour tin. Love, Nana. P.S. Do not let them take the porch swing. I read the postscript 3 times. It was so perfectly her that I almost laughed. Then I cried instead. The key was exactly where she said it would be, buried inside an old flour tin behind a bag of brown sugar that had gone hard as brick. The recipe box opened with a small metallic click. Inside were not just recipes. There were documents folded between stained index cards. A recorded trust deed. A revocable living trust. A durable power of attorney. A healthcare proxy. A letter from Dr. Miriam Sayegh, Nana's neurologist, dated 18 months earlier. An inventory of household items. A typed list of bills and bank accounts. And, tucked behind, a recipe for lemon sponge pie. A second note? If Denise says she has newer papers, check the hospital week. The hospital week. My hands went cold. Nana had fallen in August. She had hit her shoulder on the pantry door and spent 2 nights at St. Anne's because she was dehydrated and confused. My mother had texted me, "Minor fall. Don't leave work. We have it handled." I remembered calling Nana in the hospital and hearing Mom answer her phone. "She's sleeping," Mom said. It was 11 in the morning. I had thought it was strange. I had not thought it was a warning. Now I took every document from the recipe box and spread them across the table. The trust deed had been recorded 16 months ago with the Bristol Land Evidence Records. The property at 18 Mariners Road had been transferred into the Rose Bennett Home Trust. Nana had served as trustee while competent. I was named successor trustee upon incapacity. Not Dad. Not Tyler. Me. The durable power of attorney named me as financial agent. The healthcare proxy named me as medical decision-maker. The physician's letter stated clearly that on the date of signing, Rose Bennett was oriented to person, place, time, and circumstances, understood the nature of her assets, and articulated a consistent wish to remain in her home as long as reasonably possible. It was clean. It was deliberate. It was exactly the kind of paper trail families like mine never expect from women who bake their own birthday pies. My phone rang. Mom. I let it ring. Then a text. Are you still at Nana's? Tyler needs access this afternoon. Appraiser coming. I looked toward the living room. Nana was awake now, watching me through the doorway. Her eyes were clearer than they had been the night before. Is it Denise? She asked. Yes. She never could wait for pie to cool. I smiled. No, she really couldn't. Nana pointed at the recipe box. Did I do it right? I swallowed. You did it perfectly. Good. She leaned back, tired from the sentence. Then make them read. The appraiser came at 2. So did Tyler. He pulled into the driveway in a black Range Rover he absolutely could not afford, wearing a camel coat and the expression of a man arriving to collect something already promised to him. He saw my car and frowned. Clara, didn't Mom tell you I was coming? She did. Then why are you here? Nana lives here. He laughed shortly, like that was a sweet but irrelevant detail. The appraiser, a woman named Paula with a clipboard and sensible boots, stood near the gate, looking uncomfortable. Tyler used his key on the back door. It did not work, because while he was pulling into the driveway, I had slid the deadbolt. He looked through the glass. Open the door. I opened it 6 inches. Is Nana expecting an appraiser? He lowered his voice. Don't do this. Answer the question. She doesn't understand these things anymore. She understands strangers walking through her bedrooms. Paula cleared her throat behind him. I was told this was authorized by the property owner. It is not, I said. Tyler's face changed then. The charming developer mask slipped just enough for the panic underneath to show teeth. Clara, this is family business. No, it's trust property. He went very still. What did you say? I held up the recorded deed. The house is in a trust. Nana made me successor trustee. You do not have authority to show it. For 1 second, Tyler looked like the 13-year-old boy who had once broken Nana's crystal bowl and let me take the blame. Then he smiled. Hard. You have no idea what you're talking about. Mom has updated documents. The ones from the hospital week? His eyes flickered. There it was. Confirmation. He recovered quickly. You're a clerk, Clara. Don't pretend you're a lawyer. I don't have to be a lawyer to read a recorded deed. Paula took 1 step backward. Tyler noticed. Paula, give us a minute. She looked between us. I think I'll reschedule once ownership is clarified. Smart woman. She left. Tyler waited until her car backed out before turning on me. You're going to ruin everything. What exactly is everything? My company, Dad's retirement, Mom's sanity, Nana's care. Do you think care is free? Do you think keeping an old house warm because you're sentimental is responsible? Behind me, Nana's voice came from the kitchen. It is warm enough. Tyler flinched. Not because he cared she heard. Because he had forgotten she could. Nana stood in the doorway holding the edge of the counter. Small. Bent. Blue sweater. White hair pinned badly because I had done it, and I am terrible with pins. But her face was there. The old face. The one that had stared down church ladies arguing over cake prices. My house is not your bridge loan, she said. Tyler's mouth opened. Nana, She lifted one hand. Go home. He did. But not before turning back at the gate and saying, Mom is going to lose her mind over this. I believed him. Denise Bennett always considered another person's boundary a personal attack. My mother arrived that evening with my father in the passenger seat. That alone told me she was angry. She preferred witnesses when performing injury. Dad looked pale. Mom looked immaculate. Cashmere wrap, gold hoops, lipstick the shade of someone else's blood. She stepped into the kitchen without greeting Nana. Her eyes went straight to the table, where I had stacked the documents in labeled piles. What have you done? I opened what Nana left me. You had no right to go through her things. Nana was sitting at the table, looked up from a crossword. I gave them to her. Mom's smile appeared. The social one. The one she used on people at charity luncheons before saying something surgical. Rose, sweetheart, you don't understand. Clara is confusing you. Nana blinked. For a moment, the fog drifted across her face. Then she looked at me. Am I confused? Not about this. Mom turned on me. How dare you? Dad stood behind her, hands in his coat pockets. The same pose he used my entire childhood when Mom and Tyler filled the room, and he decided silence was safer. Dad, I said, did you know Nana put the house in a trust? He looked at the floor. Mom answered for him. Your father and I have more recent authority. Signed during the hospital week. Mom's eyes narrowed. She had a lucid morning. The notary confirmed it. Which notary? Clara. Which notary, Mom? Silence. Dad looked up then. Only for a second. I saw something in his face I had not expected. Fear. Not of me. Of my mother. Or maybe of what he had let happen. Mom placed both hands on the table. This is not some probate window for you to stamp papers at. This is your grandmother's future. Harbor Glen has an opening. It will not last. Tyler's situation is urgent. The house is the only asset large enough to help everyone. There it is, I said. There what is? Help everyone? Not Nana? Mom's face hardened. Your grandmother would want to help her family. She wanted to keep her home. She does not even know what home is half the time. The room went quiet. Even the refrigerator hum seemed to lower itself. Nana's pencil stopped moving above the crossword. My father closed his eyes. I looked at my mother and felt something inside me finish. Not break. Finish. She heard you. Mom glanced at Nana, then back at me. A flicker of inconvenience crossed her face. Not regret. Inconvenience. That is not what I meant. Nana set the pencil down carefully. I know my house, she said. Her voice shook, but it carried. I know this table. I know the crack in the blue plate. I know the porch swing. I know Paul's height marks on the pantry door. I know Clara's hand in mine. She looked at my father. I know my son standing still when he should speak. Dad's face crumpled. Mom said, Rose, please. Nana turned back to the crossword, exhausted. 7 letters. Person who takes what is not theirs. No one answered. I did. Thief. Nana wrote it in. The next morning, I drove to Helen Morrow's office in Newport. It was in an old brick building near the harbor, 2nd floor, with creaking stairs and a waiting room full of framed lighthouse prints. Helen had already made tea. That is how I knew Nana had chosen well. Only elder law attorneys and grandmothers understand the strategic value of tea. She took the documents from the recipe box and reviewed them one by one, though I could tell she knew exactly what was inside. She was very thorough. Helen said she hid legal papers behind pie recipes. Effective estate planning often requires understanding the client. I almost smiled. Helen explained what I already suspected but needed to hear from someone with a license. The trust deed was valid and recorded. Nana was likely no longer competent to serve as trustee due to documented dementia, which activated my role as successor trustee. The durable power of attorney and healthcare proxy were properly executed, witnessed, and supported by a capacity letter. Any newer document signed during or after a documented period of confusion would be vulnerable. Do you have reason to believe your family obtained a later power of attorney? Helen asked. Yes. Do you have a copy? Not yet. Get one if you can. Photograph everything. Do not remove originals that are not yours. And do not let anyone take your grandmother out of the house without written medical or legal authority. I wrote that down. Even though I would remember. Helen leaned back. There is something else. She opened a file. Your grandmother executed an addendum 6 months after the trust. What kind of addendum? A distribution condition. If any beneficiary or family member attempts to sell, encumber, transfer, or force vacancy of 18 Mariners Road without the trustee's authorization while Rose is living, that person is removed from any remainder distribution after her death. I stared at her. Nana added a no contest clause for the house? She called it the keep your hands out of my pantry clause. I laughed then. I could not help it. Helen smiled. It was not technically labeled that. So if Tyler and my parents keep pushing, they risk losing any eventual inheritance from the trust. Of course Nana had known. Before the worst fog. Before the stove. Before the wandering, she had looked at the people she raised and married into and built legal mousetraps with recipe cards around them. Helen handed me a copy of the addendum. Your grandmother knew love without boundaries becomes a door people walk through with muddy shoes. I looked at her. That sounds like something she said. It is. I wrote it down because it was better than anything I would have drafted. The newer power of attorney was in my father's briefcase. I found it because he came back alone on Thursday and left the briefcase under the kitchen chair while Nana asked him if he wanted soup. He had never looked so tired. Dad was 62, but that morning he looked closer to 80. He sat at the table staring at the pantry door, where faint pencil marks still showed Tyler's childhood height chart. Mine had been on the other side, less visible. "Of course. Your mother says you were trying to make me look incompetent," he said. "I am trying to keep Nana in her house." He nodded slowly. "She wants me to talk you down." "Are you here to do that?" He looked toward the living room. Nana was asleep with a blanket over her knees. "No." That surprised me. He ran a hand over his face. "Your grandmother used to make cinnamon rolls every first day of school. Did you know that?" "Yes." "She made them for Tyler longer because he asked." "I know." "And for you?" I shrugged. "She left them in a paper bag for me because I had early bus." Dad closed his eyes. "She told me once that you never asked for more because you learned early not to wait." I said nothing. Some truths are too old to react to. His phone buzzed. "Mom, probably." He did not pick it up. Progress can be cruelly small. "Dad," I said, "did you sign anything after Nana's hospital stay?" His hand tightened around the coffee cup. "I did what your mother said needed doing." "Did Nana understand?" His eyes filled. Not tears exactly. Moisture around a closed door. "She was tired." "That is not an answer." "I didn't even it. I do not think she understood." The sentence landed between us. There it was. The whole case in one father's cowardly confession. I saw the briefcase under the chair. Brown leather. Unzipped. A corner of legal paper visible. "Can I see it?" He looked down, then at me, then at the living room where his mother slept. For once, he chose slowly. He reached into the briefcase and pulled out a folder. Inside was the August Hospital Week Power of Attorney. It named Paul Bennett as agent over financial and real estate matters. Attached was a listing authorization naming Tyler Bennett as family representative for sale preparation. The signature was wrong, not forged. Worse, shaky, disconnected, guided. The R in Rose barely formed. The B in Bennett looked like two separate attempts. The notary stamp belonged to someone named Cynthia Vale. I did not recognize her. Dad watched me read. "Your mother said the old documents were outdated." "They were 16 months old." "She said Helen Morrow manipulated Mom." "Did you believe that?" He did not answer. His phone buzzed again. This time he silenced it. I photographed every page. Then I slid the folder back. Dad whispered, "Am I going to jail?" There are questions daughters should not have to hear from fathers. "I don't know." His shoulders folded. "I never wanted the house sold." "But you were going to sign." "Yes, because Mom told you." His mouth trembled. "Because I have spent 40 years letting your mother be certain so I would not have to be brave." I wanted to pity him. Part of me did. But pity is not the same as absolution. Nana needed you brave. I know. Tyler needed you weak. He looked at me then. The truth hit harder than blame. He left 15 minutes later, This time, he kissed Nana on the forehead before he went. She woke just enough to say, "Don't forget your lunch, Polly," he cried in the driveway. I watched through the kitchen window and did not go out. Some grief belongs to the person who earned it. Helen and I made a plan. Not a dramatic one. No screaming. No ambush at Thanksgiving. No social media. Paper. Dates. Signatures. Recorded instruments. That was the language my family had underestimated because it came from the clerk. Step 1. Notify the realtor in writing that the property was trust-owned and no showing, listing, inspection, appraisal, or sale could proceed without trustee authorization. Step 2. Obtain Nana's current capacity evaluation from Dr. Sayag. Step 3. File a report with Adult Protective Services regarding suspected financial exploitation. Step 4. Appear at the scheduled contract signing if my family tried to proceed anyway. They did. Of course they did. Denise Bennett had never met a boundary she did not believe could be outmaneuvered by confidence. The signing was scheduled for December 19th at Seaside Title and Escrow. Not a closing yet. A purchase and sale execution. Tyler had found a buyer, Harborstone Capital Partners, a company that bought aging coastal homes in cash, renovated them into luxury rentals, and painted the front doors black. The offer was $800,000. At least $100,000 below market. Fast close? No inspection. Seller to vacate within 45 days. Seller! That word made me physically cold. As if Nana were an obstacle attached to the property, rather than the woman whose hands had made the house smell like cinnamon for 50 years. 2 days before the signing, Mom called me from a number I did not recognize. I answered because Nana's doctor had been calling from blocked lines. Clara. I nearly hung up. Do not hang up. You have 10 seconds. Her voice shook, but not with vulnerability. With rage wearing church clothes. You are embarrassing this family. 10. Tyler could lose everything. 9. Your father is sick over this. 8. You have always been jealous of your brother. 7. You think because you file paperwork all day, you understand real assets. 6. Your grandmother cannot live in that house alone. She is not alone. That stopped her. What does that mean? It means I am moving into the guest room. Silence. Then cold. You cannot just take over her life. She asked me to... No. You manipulated a confused old woman. I looked at Nana's recipe box on the table. The green paint chipped at the corners. The twine beside it. The key. The letters. The legal architecture of a woman who had known exactly who would call her confused when her wishes became inconvenient. Mom, I said, I will see you at the title office. I hung up before she could answer. Nana was at the sink, washing a mug she had already washed twice. Was that Denise? Yes. She hates losing. She hasn't lost yet. Nana looked at me over her shoulder. Then make sure she does. The morning of December 19th was bitterly cold. The kind of cold that makes car doors sound angry. I wore a navy dress, black tights, my court flats, and the camel coat Nana had bought me at a thrift shop when I passed my first civil service exam. In my bag, certified copy of the trust deed, durable power of attorney, healthcare proxy, capacity letter from 16 months ago, current capacity evaluation, no contest addendum, photographs of the hospital week power of attorney, doctor, Sayeg's hospital discharge notes, and Nana's handwritten letter from the recipe box. Helen Morrow met me outside Seaside Title at 12:45. She wore a charcoal suit and red gloves. "I always wear red to stop a theft," she said. I did not know whether she was joking. The conference room was called Narragansett. Of course it was. There was a long table, a speaker phone, a tray of stale cookies, and a framed photograph of a lighthouse on the wall. Tyler was already there. So were Mom and Dad. Tyler wore a navy blazer and the smile he used on lenders. Mom wore pearls and a cream coat that made her look like she had arrived from a better family than the one she was actively damaging. Dad looked like he had not slept. Beside them sat a realtor named Grant Ellis, whom I had seen once at the 4th of July parade, handing out branded fans. Across from him was the buyer's representative, a woman named Meredith Stone, late 40s, very still, with a leather notebook and eyes that missed nothing. The title officer, Angela Pierce, looked up when Helen and I entered. Her professional smile hesitated. "Ms. Morrow," she said. A good sign. People in that business knew elder law attorneys the way deer know headlights. Mom stood. Clara, this is inappropriate." I sat down. "Good afternoon." Tyler leaned back. "Are you kidding me?" "No." Dad stared at his hands. Helen placed her briefcase on the table. Angela Pierce looked between us. "Ms. Morrow, are you appearing on behalf of a party to this transaction?" "Yes," Helen said. "I represent the Rose Bennett Home Trust and its acting trustee, Clara Bennett." The room changed temperature. Meredith Stone closed her notebook. Grant Ellis stopped smiling. Mom laughed once. Too sharp. "That is absurd. My husband is Rose Bennett's only child and power of attorney." Helen did not look at her. She removed the first document from her briefcase. "This is a certified copy of the recorded trust deed transferring 18 Mariners Road into the Rose Bennett Home Trust 16 months ago. The trust remains active. No reconveyance deed has been recorded. No dissolution instrument exists. The property is not individually owned by Rose Bennett and cannot be sold by a personal power of attorney." Angela took the document. She read quickly. "Professionally," then slower. Tyler leaned forward. "We have updated documents." "I have seen them," Helen said. Mom's head snapped toward Dad. Dad did not look up. Helen placed the second document down. "Durable power of attorney naming Clara Bennett as financial agent, executed while Mrs. Bennett had documented capacity." Third, healthcare proxy naming Clara Bennett. Fourth, Dr. Miriam Sayeg's capacity evaluation from 16 months ago. Fifth, current evaluation from last week confirming Mrs. Bennett now lacks capacity to execute new legal instruments. Sixth, hospital discharge summary from the same week your later power of attorney was allegedly signed, noting acute confusion, dehydration, and altered mental status. The room was silent except for paper sliding against wood. Meredith Stone turned to Grant Ellis. "Did you know about the trust?" Grant swallowed. "I was told it had been superseded." "By whom?" He looked at Tyler. Tyler's face reddened. Mom stood fully now. "This is a family disagreement. It has nothing to do with the buyer." Meredith's voice was calm. "It has everything to do with the buyer if the seller cannot convey clear title." Angela nodded. "I cannot proceed with this signing until ownership authority is clarified." Tyler slammed one palm on the table. "Clarified? My grandmother is senile. My father is her son. We're trying to pay for her care." I looked at him then. Really looked. At the expensive haircut. The watch. The panic behind the performance. "Nana sat alone on her birthday with 10 plates on the table while you were in Vermont," I said. "Do not call this care." His mouth opened. I kept going. "You brought an appraiser without asking her. You used a hospital week power of attorney to list a house already held in trust. You tried to sell it below market to cover your debt, and you keep saying family as if the word becomes clean just because you repeat it." Mom's face had gone white. "Clara." "No," I said. "You do not get to lower your voice and make this polite—" Helen touched my wrist under the table. "A reminder. Facts, not fire." I took a breath. Then I placed Nana's handwritten letter on the table. "For Clara, when they say I need to leave my house—" Mom stared at the handwriting. Dad made a sound like he had been struck. Tyler looked away. Angela Pierce read the first line silently. Her expression softened, but her voice stayed professional. "This office will not proceed. The file is suspended pending legal clearance. I will be flagging the title file and documenting the dispute." Meredith Stone stood. "My company is withdrawing from the offer." Tyler spun toward her. "You can't." "We can," she said. "We buy property, Mr. Bennett, not litigation." She walked out. Grant Ellis gathered his papers with hands that shook just enough to satisfy me. Helen added one more document to the table. The trust also contains a conditional remainder clause. Any family member who attempts to sell, encumber, transfer, or force vacancy of the property during Mrs. Bennett's lifetime without trustee authorization forfeits any future remainder interest. Mom sat down slowly. For the first time all day, she looked genuinely frightened. "What does that mean?" "It means," Helen said, "if you continue, you may lose any inheritance from the trust." Tyler looked at my father. Dad looked at the letter. Mom whispered, "Rose would never do that." I answered, "She already did." The aftermath did not explode. It cracked. That is how families like mine fall apart. Not in one dramatic collapse. In small structural failures, no one can pretend not to see any more. Tyler missed his lender deadline in January. Bennett Harbor Development entered receivership. He sold the Range Rover, then the condo, then the watch. He sent me one email with no subject line. "I hope you're happy." I did not respond. My mother left me 23 voicemails in 6 weeks. Some crying, some furious, some soft enough to be dangerous. "You have always misunderstood me, Clara. I was only trying to protect everyone. Your grandmother is not herself. Tyler could lose his marriage because of you. The last one almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because apparently my mother believed every woman in our family existed to provide scaffolding for Tyler's life. My father came to Nana's house alone in February. He brought groceries, actual groceries, milk, eggs, soup, cinnamon, 2 bags of flour. He stood in the kitchen, holding the bags like a man applying for re-entry to a country he had betrayed. Nana was having a foggy afternoon. She thought he was his father. "Tommy," she said, "put the flour in the pantry." Dad froze. His father had been dead for 23 years. Then he nodded. "Yes, Mom." He put the flour away. Afterward, he sat on the back steps with me, coat buttoned to his throat, breath visible in the cold. "I read the trust," he said. "Good. She named you because she did not trust me." "Yes." He winced. I did not soften it. There are truths that become lies if you wrap them too kindly. "I earned that," he said. I looked at him. It was the first sentence he had said in months that did not lean on someone else's excuse. He rubbed his hands together. "I spent my whole life thinking keeping Denise calm kept the family together." "And did it?" He shook his head. "No, it just taught everyone where to push." We sat in silence. The bay wind moved through bare hydrangea stalks. Inside, Nana began singing to herself. An old hymn. Wrong words. "Right tune," Dad cried quietly. I let him. He came back the next week. Then the week after. Never with Mom. Sometimes Nana knew him. Sometimes she called him Tommy. Sometimes she asked if he had done his homework. He answered whatever version of her arrived. That was something not enough to erase, enough to note. Adult Protective Services substantiated financial exploitation in March. No criminal charges came immediately, though Helen said the file would remain active and useful if anyone tried anything again. The hospital weak power of attorney was formally revoked in probate court. I was confirmed as Nana's guardian and acting trustee. The order was 6 pages. Dry, precise, unemotional. I cried when I read it. Not because I wanted control, because the law had finally written down what Nana's letter said first. She had chosen me. I moved into the guest room full time. The room with yellow wallpaper and a slanted floor. The room where I had slept as a child after Nana let me stay up late watching old movies. The ceiling had a water stain shaped like Maine. I traced it with my eyes the first night and felt my old life fold shut somewhere behind me. Caring for someone with dementia is not cinematic. It is not soft piano music and meaningful hand-holding all day. It is medication alarms, insurance calls, locks installed high on doors, stove knobs removed, laundry at midnight because she spilled tea and cried from embarrassment. It is hearing the same question 9 times and answering the 9th as gently as the first because she is not asking to annoy you. She is asking because the answer keeps disappearing. It is grief before death, love with paperwork, patience with teeth. Some days Nana was herself. She corrected my pie crust. She told my father to stop slouching. She remembered the bakery orders she made in 1994, but not breakfast. Other days, she was somewhere none of us could follow. She stood in the hallway holding her shoes and said she needed to pick up Paul from school. She asked if Grandpa was at work. She accused me of stealing her recipe box and then, 10 minutes later, thanked me for keeping it safe. I learned not to argue with time. I learned to enter the room she was in. The porch swing became our place. Even in winter, wrapped in blankets, we sat there when the sun came out. One afternoon in April, she touched the arm of the swing and said, "Tom built this crooked—" Grandpa built everything crooked. He loved straight lines, couldn't make one. We laughed. Then she looked at me. Clear. Sudden. Nobody came to my birthday. My throat tightened. I came. Yes, she said, you did. Then the fog returned. But that moment stayed. I think people imagine dementia erases pain completely. It does not. Sometimes it hides pain in the walls and lets it out through cracks. That is why what my family did mattered. That is why every empty chair mattered. That is why the 10 clean plates still haunted me. In May, Tyler came by. I almost did not let him in. He stood on the porch, looking thinner, cheaper somehow, not in clothes, but in certainty. No camel coat, no watch, no charm. I'm not here to fight, he said. Why are you here? He looked past me into the house. To see Nana. She may not know you. I know. I let him sit with her in the living room for 20 minutes while I stayed in the kitchen where I could hear every word. Nana thought he was a delivery boy at first. Then she touched his face and said, Tyler? His shoulders shook. Yes, Nana. You got tall. I did. Did you eat? He laughed once, broken. Not yet. Clara feeds everyone now, she said. I turned toward the sink because I did not want him to see my face. Before he left, Tyler stood in the kitchen doorway. I thought if I lost the company, I'd be nothing. I wiped the counter. And I lost it, still here. I said nothing. He swallowed. I'm sorry about her birthday. Not the house. Not the papers. Not the appraiser. Her birthday. It was not everything. But it was the right first piece. She waited for you, I said. I know. No. Tyler, I need you to understand this. She waited with plates set. She thought the ice cream was melting because you were late, not because you weren't coming. His face crumpled. Good. Not because I wanted him destroyed. Because some understanding should hurt. He nodded. I deserved that. Yes. He left without asking for anything. That was new enough to matter. My mother lasted until June before appearing at the gate. She did not come to the door. She stood by the hydrangeas in a linen dress, arms crossed, looking at the house, like it had betrayed her by still existing. I stepped onto the porch. Nana is resting. I came to see you. No, you came to see whether I would let you see her. She looked away. The bay breeze moved the scarf around her neck. I made mistakes. It was the closest she had ever come to an apology, and still she made it sound like a clerical error. You tried to sell her house. We were overwhelmed. You used her confusion. We were scared. You left her alone on her birthday. That landed. Her mouth tightened. We were in Vermont because Tyler was falling apart. And Nana wasn't? Mom's eyes filled. I did not trust the tears. Maybe they were real. Maybe they were tools. With my mother, the difference had stopped mattering. She was always so hard on me, Mom whispered. That surprised me. Nana, she never thought I was good enough for Paul. She always looked at me like she knew what I was going to do before I did it. I almost laughed. She was right. Mom looked at me sharply. Then, after a moment, she looked down. Maybe that was the first honest thing between them. Maybe Nana had known Denise from the start, and Denise had spent 40 years resenting the accuracy. I am not ready to let you inside, I said. Her face changed. There it was. The old outrage. Then she swallowed it. Also knew, what would it take? Time, consistency, no access to papers, no conversations with Nana about moving, money, property, Tyler, inheritance, or guilt. You visit as a daughter-in-law, not a manager. Her laugh was small and bitter. You sound like a court order. I learned from the best. She looked at the house again, then nodded once. I'll try. I did not say thank you. Trying was not a gift to me. It was the minimum price of entry. Nana turned 82 the next December. This time, I did not set the table for 10. I set it for whoever had earned a chair. Dad came early and fixed the loose pantry hinge without being asked. Tyler brought flowers and left his phone in the car. My mother came with a pie from a bakery and admitted immediately it was from a bakery, which may sound small, but in my family counted as spiritual growth. Helen Morrow came because Nana had invited her 3 separate times during one phone call. Aunt June from Fall River came with a bottle of wine and a memory sharp enough to cut glass. Nana wore the blue sweater. I made the cake. Vanilla, buttercream. Not as good as hers. She told me so. That was the best compliment I got all year. At 6, we lit 2 candles shaped like an 8 and a 2. Nana looked around the table. Her eyes were cloudy, then clear, then cloudy again. Are we waiting for someone? I looked at the chairs. Dad, Mom, Tyler, Helen, Aunt June, me. No empty performance seats. No places set for people proving absence. No, I said. Everyone here is here. She smiled. Good. We sang. She laughed through half of it. Then she forgot why we were singing and asked if the cake was for church. Aunt June said, "It is for whoever gets there first." Nana said, "Then cut big pieces." So I did. After dinner, Dad stood awkwardly near the sink. I want to say something. Mom looked alarmed. Tyler stared at his plate. I said, "Okay." Dad turned toward Nana, though I was not sure she understood. "I was not the son you needed last year," he said. "Or before that. I let other people decide what care meant because it was easier than standing up. I'm sorry, Mom." Nana blinked. "Did you break something?" Aunt June snorted. Dad laughed and cried at the same time. "Yet," he said, "I did." "Well, Nana said. "Clara keeps the glue." Everyone looked at me. I had no idea whether Nana understood the perfection of what she had said. Maybe she did. Maybe the house itself had spoken through her. Later, after everyone left, I found Dad on the porch swing. It was dark, cold. He had his coat pulled tight. "She forgave me without knowing what for," he said. "I don't think that's how it works." "No?" "No. I think she gave you a place to start." He nodded. "Have I lost you?" The question was quiet. A year earlier, I might have rushed to comfort him. "No. Dad, of course not. I'm right here." But love without honesty becomes another kind of lie. "You lost the version of me that waited," I said. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, he nodded. "I deserve that." "Yes." Then I sat beside him. Not because everything was healed, because the porch swing was wide enough for complicated things. People ask me whether saving the house was worth what it cost. The honest answer is that the house was never the only thing being saved. We saved the table, the porch swing, the recipe box, the blue plate with the crack, the pantry door with 2 sets of height marks, one easy to see and one you have to know where to look for. We saved Nana from being moved like furniture to solve someone else's debt. We saved the truth from being rewritten by the loudest person in the room. But I also saved something in myself. The part that had spent years believing being useful was the same as being loved. For a long time, I thought if I filled enough pill organizers, answered enough calls, processed enough forms, remembered enough birthdays, my family would finally see me as central. They did not. Then Nana put my name in a trust and hid the key in the flour tin. Not because I was the most successful, not because I was the favorite, because I was the one who would read before reacting, the one who would stay, the one who knew the doors. I did eventually take the bar exam. A year late, I passed on the first try. Nana did not understand what that meant when I told her. She patted my hand and said, "Did you win?" "Yes," I said. "Good, have pie." That became the celebration. No restaurant, no speech. Just pie at the maple table with afternoon light on the floor. I now work with Helen Morrow 2 days a week, helping families create plans before crisis turns love into litigation. Sometimes adult children sit across from me and say, "Mom doesn't understand money anymore." And I ask, when did she stop understanding? And when did her choices stop being convenient? That question changes the room. It is supposed to. Nana is still in the house. Not forever. I know that. There may come a day when the care she needs becomes more than the house can hold. If that day comes, we will face it honestly. With doctors, with documents, with her wishes at the center. Not Tyler's lender. Not my mother's reputation. Not my father's fear. Hers. Until then, the porch light comes on every evening. The hydrangeas bloom. The table holds. The green recipe box sits on the second pantry shelf, locked again, though I now know every paper inside by heart. And every December, no matter how much she remembers, I bake a cake. Vanilla. Buttercream. 1 candle. Because birthdays do not expire when memory fades. A person's worth does not decrease because their mind needs help holding the day. And family is not measured by who inherits the house after someone dies. It is measured by who shows up while the porch light is still on. My name is Clara Bennett. I am 34 now. I am an attorney, a granddaughter, a guardian, and the keeper of a table my family almost sold out from under a woman who had already saved herself on paper. They called me the clerk. They were right in one way. I keep records. I keep dates. I keep signatures. I keep promises. And when they came for the house, I opened the recipe box. Nana had remembered first. I only made them read.